whole time, the whole thing was shadowing us, right behind us, right on the side of us. You could kind of see the thing moving through the woods.
All I can remember is flipping the light on, and I see this creature, and I knew in my heart, I knew in my mind, in the whole night, this isn't a man.
And then this thing walks across the road, takes a turn towards us, and then leaps over a guardrail.
Went to look forward, and there was a big black thing, is all I can call it.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, exploring the Bigfoot mystery each week with your hosts, veteran researcher, author, and TV personality, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, and from the Bigfoot Research Project of Kentucky, Chris Bennett. Sit back and buckle up as we bring you guests from around North America discussing the Bigfoot phenomena, but not without a few laughs too. Here are your hosts, Steve and...
And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, May 3rd, 2020. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch detective, Steve Kulls, along with the guy downstairs there, the bald guy, Mr. Chris Bennett.
Hey, Steve, how you doing, man? Hope everything's going for you. Safe for you in New York, anyway. Look like the numbers are going down. That's good.
Yeah, as far as the COVID numbers are, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so let me just make a quick announcement to everybody that's over on Facebook. The Facebook comments I'm actually monitoring over here, so I apologize if they do not get responded to right away because they're not coming across the board. There is an issue. StreamYard has reached out to Facebook, and they're trying to make a resolution to that. So, but the YouTube, Periscope, Twitter, they're all coming through, and so you know, I see we have the Tricks in, we have Dave Dragusin in over at Facebook, Sherry from Facebook, and of course, we want to say hi to Frank. Hello, Frank.
Frank.
Tom. Hello, Tom. Mark over on Twitter. Hello, Mark.
Big Mark.
Yeah, Frank. Good. We already got you.
We got a double dose of Frank there, but that's
Jerry.
fine.
Hello, Jerry.
Hey, Jerry.
And something to Sasquatch about. Good evening, sir, or madame.
Hey. All right.
Patrick. Hello.
Pat.
So, and Frank says he's looking forward to the show with a nice coffee.
Good deal.
Right. That's right. That was my grandfather's energy drink. Yeah, I'm drinking an energy drink tonight.
Coffee.
Sugar and
but we have a guy that, you know, he is awesome. I mean, we had a little pre-talk coming into the show tonight, and of course it's Carl Crew, and let me get the graphic up there. Yeah, we have Carl Crew tonight, who is the great nephew of Jerry Crew, and he has kind of been a historian about that whole affair in his family, and we're going to get to it. And looks like Charlie Wonton has signed into YouTube. That is Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy. And Ricky Chirby is out there on Facebook. I just want to make sure we're getting all our props to our regulars.
Yeah.
The bar fills up. So, but yeah, it was been an interesting week. If folks haven't checked out the YouTube channel, we have, I have started putting a lot of moving over. Very confusing. I had 2 YouTube pages for years, and I'm moving everything over from the old YouTube page to this one, and reworking some videos, which is, you know, making it really kind of cool, and doing some new evaluations. So, you know, while I'm on furlough, I will continue to be cranking out these videos. And again, I hope everybody out there is being healthy and safe and not having the plague. And I'm glad to see the numbers are going down considerably. So hopefully, you know, most of us will get back to work in you know, short order, and hopefully I'll be back to work in short order because, I've said this before, my company's getting a little bit rocked, so I don't know if they're going to bring us back right away, but 'tis what it is.
Yeah, well, we'll come back eventually. We might not snap back next week, but hey, we'll be back.
So, for the sake of things, we're going to forego any stuff about any type of massacre or anything like that tonight. We're gonna jump right into the topic with our guest tonight, Mr. Carl Crew. How are you, Carl?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm awesome. And Carl, you're coming up from North Hollywood, correct?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yep. And if people notice in the background, there's Jerry with the print.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, all right. And so I don't know where you want to start with this, but I'll give you the floor and then I'll
the beginning is usually good, yeah. Well, first of all, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for this guy. This is Dr. John Crew. It's my dad, and he logged his way through college with Jerry. That's how he worked his way through medical college, and he would go up to Shasta and water down the roads in the big trucks. And my other uncle, Jim Crew, coolest uncle in the world, Harley riding, crazy. He worked for Steinhardt Aquarium and showed me the needle-nosed gar and used to swim with the dolphins. This guy was super cool. Anyway, he showed my Uncle Jim how to do that. And they both worked with Jerry. So I've been hearing Bigfoot all my life, all of the stories coming from different parts of the family members. And I finally realized, I need to put it all together. And I spoke to my Uncle Jim, and he gave me like 50 years of yellowed newspaper articles, everything he had collected for all these years. And I had to pour through all those, and that's how I started it. And I needed to write a screenplay. I've been making movies for like 30 years, but this is just part of family history, so I had to do it. So yeah, it's been amazing. I got to interview Peter Burns. Like, what an honor. It's an honor, dude. I mean, unbelievable. They call him the Indiana Jones mixed with the Don Quixote. Yeah, cool, man. This guy, he used to tend the tea fields in Ceylon. He hunted Yeti in the Himalayas, and he was the one that Tom Slick, that really cool, bizarre millionaire from Texas, hired to get all his Bigfoot people in line. He had gone into Willow Creek and hired a bunch of people, Tom Slick, and he just kind of put Peter in charge of it. And I got tons of great stories online that Peter had written about everything. There's a lot of great stuff. But actually, when Peter went up to Willow Creek, there was a bunch of people that were on payroll from Tom. And one of them was named Renee. And Renee was so pissed off, he wouldn't even talk to Peter at all. He wouldn't answer the phone, nothing. And then he went over to Green, Mr. John Green. And the guy would only make his wife talk to him on the phone. He didn't want to talk to him at all. So he let him go. And there was another guy named Ed, and he had moved to San Francisco. So that's kind of hard to hunt Bigfoot in San Francisco. So he came off the payroll. And then there was other couple guys. What were their names? Their names were LePay and Gatto, and they were in prison for fraud.
Oh, geez.
So, we get a bunch of I won't even say what they are, but then of course Bob Titmus. Yep. I love saying that name. And Bob Titmus, who was the original one who showed Jerry, my great uncle, how to make a plaster cast. And I got a great story about him a little later, but he was friends with Al Hodgins.
Hodgin, yep.
Yeah, and Al came down to Jerry's house because he wanted to show him this cast. And he came in and he looked at it. He goes, someone's faking you out, And so Jerry said, no, this is the real deal. And here's this map that he drew a map. And he gave it to Al, and Al gave it to Titmus. And apparently it ended up in Gimlin with Bob Gimlin. And that's where they followed Jerry's map to the place where they shot that film in 1967. This is recorded in 1958 when it happened. So it's been just nonstop finding all these gems, It's been really a trip. Wow.
So, just out of curiosity, is your screenplay going to incorporate all that as well?
Absolutely.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I go into a great deal about good old Ray Wallace too.
Well, yeah. Let's hold Ray for a minute.
Oh no, I agree.
Let's hold Ray for a New York minute. Something the Sasquatch wrote. Damn, I need to make a shirt. I came for a Sasquatch massacre, and all I got is hoaxed. Gotta love our audience.
Yeah.
And Ty Thorpe says he's watching for the first time. Welcome, Ty. And I also want to say hello to George over on Facebook and Edward. Again, for those joining us a little bit late, Facebook comments are not coming across. So Jerry Crew named Bigfoot.
Yeah, baby.
Did he name Bigfoot, or was it the reporter?
It was the reporter that interviewed him, so it came out of him.
Right.
He's the one that wrote the thing. So yeah, he used to call him Bigfoot, and he would make everyone laugh. And
oh, really?
he was never joking about it. He never joked about it.
Yeah.
He was very serious.
He does. In every picture he takes, he's got that.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. The guy at the Humboldt Times, he said, yeah, he got a smile when he was going to take the picture. I have the whole account of when he went into town with this woman he knew and her son. And he gave them a ride into town going to see the guy at the Humboldt Times. And the son tells it in a story. He said he was in the back seat, and Jerry turned around and goes, hey, flip over that thing right there. Just take the towel off that. He did it. And wow, what's this? 2 Bigfoot prints. And he goes, what are these? I'm going into, Humboldt. When he got there, the guy from the Humboldt Times, he said, well, listen, you got to hold it up and crack a big smile. And Jerry said, nope.
Good for him.
Nope, I'm not doing it. It's too serious. I'm not going to I'm not going to be like Mr. Huckster, So he was a very serious guy, but he was pretty funny too. But he was like, he didn't drink. He taught Sunday school to the Hopi Indians. He would stay outside of the camp and would drive there every week. But on weekends, he always went to church, and he picked up the Hopi Indian kids and taught them Sunday school. I mean, this is like everyone I've talked to, they just say nothing but good things about him. How right on he was. And you always trusted him totally. So fascinating stuff, though. I just stumbled across. So. And
another comment, Mr. Carl Crew's books sound like they will be good already.
Well, let me tell you something. It's going to be a feature film first.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna adapt the script to a book form. Yeah, I put it out, but there's never been a giant film made about Bigfoot, and really the whole thing for me was about taking down the giant legend that it's become, paring that down to what really happened. Getting back to like the nitty gritty, so to speak, like the real stuff. A lot of people have a lot of different, things about people. Oh, well, it's Bigfoot and UFOs, I mean, even Ray Wallace is always talking about UFOs. But there's even a Facebook page, Bigfoot and UFOs.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're supernatural. And neither did Jerry. Because, Jerry said, supernatural don't live big old piles of poop.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But the deal is people say, well, I would see one, and then it would be down there all of a sudden, way down there, and appear. Well, they travel in packs. So if one pops their head out and then they disappear, and then another one pops in, you're going to see it's going to be look like it's the same one. It's not. They travel in packs as far as we know. So there's a lot of different things that can be explained, but the irony is that Jerry Crew never saw one. That's the best part. He never saw one, but he heard them. He smelled them. They were kind of scared to death. On one time, he went out with Peter Burns, and they found the nesting place of a Bigfoot, and it was with a giant tree, and they pulled down these giant things of moss, and they laid them out like beds, and they actually found some animal bones around it, and they actually found some fecal matter, and they sent it to Berkeley, and it was later came back that it was couldn't identify exactly what animal, but it was definitely carnivorous, and there were parasites in it from human and ape species. that are only found in humans and apes. See, and I don't believe that they're missing link or anything like that. I don't believe that at all. And I do not believe they're supernatural, but I guess
well, we talk about that a lot on that show about it may appear supernatural, but a deer runs across the road. You take a look as you're driving by it, it's gone. You don't know where it is.
They're quick.
Yeah,
they're quick. I mean, they can scale the. You know what the terrain is like in Mount Shasta? The terrain is like straight up and down.
Yep.
Like there's ravines, that go way down and like they just go all over the place. So and there's a lot of stuff from the Hopi Indians. They're all kind of like spiritual anyway. So they're gonna come up with a big like the Wendigo and all the different names they had for it. And but there was other people that were Hopis that talked to him that kind of pared it all down. Just the natural ability to give it supernatural. That's part of their culture,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And we do have a few questions and comments in the YouTube is popping tonight. I think when you look like your uncle.
Like my dad. I just have the same glasses. Yeah, my hair's all. Here's my routine hair. So, yeah.
Frank asked, would it be a documentary style movie? I think you're thinking more of an action type of.
It's going to be a feature film, but it's going to be based on. I did Jeffrey Dahmer's The Secret Life, and that was a feature film based on real life, stuff. Excuse me. It's not going to be a documentary, but it's going to have so much information in it. It took a year to write it.
And if you need somebody to play Bob Hieronymus, Chris Bennett volunteers.
Oh, no.
The next question is from Ammon Chris. Hello, welcome, Ammon. We have another one of our regular hooligans at the bar. Didn't they throw a huge tire at the one job site? I believe it was like was it a 50-gallon drum or was it a tire?
I don't know. There was a big giant tire from one of the tractors worth 700 pounds. And it was rolled down the thing to the ravine, and there was and it was thrown off the side. There was also a 500-pound oil drum that was picked up and thrown, and there was not dragged. The tire was rolled, but the drum was picked up and walked over to a ravine, and there was no drag marks.
Wow!
Incredible. I mean, the strength. Absolutely.
Now, this was during or before the tracks? Or
during? That was during the same era. And, Ray Wallace was getting pissed because he thought someone was joking, pranking him. And he thought, because people were quitting left and right. As soon as Jerry made the print and all this, that just exploded a bunch of stuff. That went worldwide. The articles went worldwide, and they were getting hundreds of people inquiring about it. And like Jerry was not like, he didn't like the limelight,
Right.
He was like, oh my goodness, what happened? And they would constantly try to interview him and stuff. And he did a few interviews, but so that it was huge. And so, but a lot of people started quitting because they were so scared. Wow. They were so scared. I would love to, as a kid, I was in like 5th grade, and I was like, I'm going to do my book report on Bigfoot, and like I went in and did it, and they were like, my teacher was like, well, that's a campfire story, and well, that's not true, and all the kids were like, and I practically cried because I went home and talked to my dad. I go, Dad, what happened? He goes, well, you know what? When you know something to be true, you don't worry about what everyone else says. Right. And that was really funny, man. He was so cool. What a brilliant guy. And he, what he did was he was a cardiovascular surgeon. And I was on the 3rd floor of the house, and then he would come in and park in the basement and then come up, and I was like, I'm going to talk to you, So what he did was he hooked up an intercom from my bed on the 3rd floor down to the basement so he could say hi when he gets home. And, when I got home that night, he came in and he said, he talked to me and he settled me down. He goes, listen, I'll be right back. And he went out and he got the print, and he came in and he showed me the print that night. And I was like, wow. And he put it on my dresser, and I was like, okay. But meanwhile, he flipped the intercom on as he walked out. Okay. So I couldn't, I got my little flashlight. I got out of bed. I went over, I looked at the print. I'm like, wow, look at this. I couldn't even believe it. And all of a sudden from my intercom, I was like, ah! Oh, good. Oh, it was in the film, yeah, just in the beginning, yeah, he's so cool, yeah.
Yeah, you know that could have tragically went bad because you could have dropped that cast.
Oh, I know. Well, you know, the funny thing is the actual. This is not the cast I have. The cast that he had. My mom accidentally broke it.
Oh,
yeah. Oh. I put it in the script, but I didn't want it.
You should. That would have been a dark day at the crew residence.
Yeah, she was sitting around the basement. And she flipped and broke into pieces. You know, I'm like, yes, and I'm like, yeah, it was so funny. She was a concert pianist. I mean, she was a brilliant musician. My parents were brilliant. They had a gospel quartet for 50 years. They toured. I felt like I was in the Christian Partridge family. You know, wow. It was a hyper musical family, man. It was just all my brother, my father. He played the trumpet and the bass, and he was the bass in the quartet. But it was a very interesting family to come from. But yeah, he was so cool like that. But he scared the crap out of me. But that was it for me. You know, like Bigfoot as much as possible. So yeah,
your mom nimble fingers as a pianist. Just don't hand her a cast.
Yeah, no, I think she just passed away last year.
I'm sorry.
In 2017, and she passed away last year. So
you know, it's tough losing your parents, but
yeah, I can't describe it. But I do know where they are, so it's cool.
Yeah. So, another questions. Here we go. Something is asked. Do you remember how big the print was?
It was 17.5 inches.
There you go. Yeah, that's a pretty.
And you know, well, okay, I have stories to tell. But we'll wait. Yeah, like about.
Hello, brave bird. So a lot of new folks in here, so we want to acknowledge them for coming on, and for all our YouTubers, you know, if you're new to the channel, you know, please hit your click and subscribe. So.
Yeah, please, folks, if you like what you're watching, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. It helps us out because, this is not monetized or anything. But the only way we can get more ratings or better search engine hits is if people do that. So we appreciate it. And Carl, I had a question for you, bud. Now, I had read an interview. Well, it wasn't much of an interview because Jerry never did very many interviews at all. He kind of struck me. He must have been like a quiet type guy that kept to himself, didn't like a lot of attention.
Right.
And, but they had asked him, and I can't remember the name of the interview, but anyway, they had asked him what he thought, because at that time, there was no such thing. Nobody knew there was a big hairy man walking around. And I think he replied something. They asked him what he thought the tracks were, and he thought, well, he didn't know. But he thought maybe it could be an extremely large Native American, maybe still living out in the woods. Did you have were there any comments like that or anything in your family?
We did a lot of research on that, and that's exactly the theory we're going to be putting out with our feature film. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that it's a missing link. I don't believe that it's some humanoid or whatever. If you know anything about evolution, there's two types. There's macroevolution and microevolution. Right. Macroevolution has like 6 examples that are all proved to be fake. Like the Nebraska man was made from a pig tooth, and it's all absurd. There's no fossil evidence, 0 fossil evidence that can be proved, 0. And there would be billions of them. But microevolution is the adaptation of species. Like the dogs over here are adapted to that because of the weather, and over here they're different because they're adapted to something else. Well, my theory is based on, in like the 1700s, there was an earthquake so big that the Mississippi flowed backwards.
Right.
Okay. There was no internet back then. There was no radio. There was no TV. There was nothing. And people went mad. And the Indians, some of them went mad and just ran into the woods, like away from where they were. And also it happened in Oregon too, where literally there's a whole thing that was raised up. It was insane. It was so intense around the exact same time. So the theory is that these people, these Indians who are already living out there like that, they went mad and they went into the woods and they lived in the woods, and through interbreeding and adaptation and microevolution, they grew strong and bigger and became what we know as Bigfoot. But they're incredibly smart. Just because they're, let's say they're woodsy smart, man. They're just way, it's like to the point where it looks alien to us in the sense that we're used to something that is so intricately sensitive to their environment. We're just like, oh, okay. Up there's like, every breath and every smell. Anyway, so that's basically the story, but we found a lot of stuff. I mean, there's articles that go back to the 1700s about wild men in the woods. Yeah, it's all over the place. And it's worldwide. I mean, but the wild man. I mean, I have many different examples in the film. There's also somebody who caught one, a baby one, for a while, and there's just a lot of history, and I include all that because I think it's very relevant. So yeah, it's kind of trying to dispel the supernatural nonsense about it and show it what it really is. Yeah. So I'd love to talk about Bob Titmus, though.
Yeah, go right ahead. I had to up my mic a bit because
I just love Bob. I love the name. I'm sorry. Oh, Bob Titmus. Well, he was one of the ones that was hired by Tom Slick. Of all the people that ended up in jail and moving around before fired and everything, he was one of the ones that said, "No, I won't talk to you, Peter. I only answer directly to Tom Slick." And because I'm doing some secret work. And there was one time where he came down to where Jerry was in the field with Peter, and they were staying, they're trying to, talk to him and see what his deal is. Well, I'm something, I'm way beyond you guys. I have information and stuff, but I can't tell you. And so it was kind of this big mystery. And eventually what happened was Tom Slick was coming to town. And when Tom Slick came to town, people, I'll tell you a story about Ray Wallace and Tom Slick pretty soon. But anyway, so Peter Burns, he got this campsite. He had his cook go down, make breakfast. Jerry was there. Some other people were there. And they were waiting for Tom and Peter to come into town. And a car pulls up, and Peter gets out, and Tom there he is. And they come out, and they say hi. And they were waiting for Bob Titmus to come by. And, Jerry's like, good, I want to talk to this guy. I want to talk to, And so all of a sudden, this old Dodge pulls up, smoking, and it's Bob Titmus, and he gets out. And he walks right up, doesn't look at anybody but Tom Slick, walks right up and goes, come here, let's go. And so he takes Bob, and they go back in this car, and they go off, So for 2 hours they waited. And he wouldn't eat. I mean, they were like shocked, like, I can't even look at us. What's going on? So 2 hours later, this car pulls back up. Tom gets out, and then it just speeds off with a smoke of dust, and it disappears. So Jerry was like, well, what happened? He goes, well, we found out what his secret research is. And he goes, what was it? Well, he said he found Bigfoot's toilet. Where Bigfoot defecates. Wow. And he took him up there, and they had to crawl through 200 yards of bushes on their knees, and they had thorns. It was crazy. And in the night, it was not really night, but it was getting dark. They're under deep cover of bushes and stuff. Yeah. And they come into this clearing, and they look over, and they see this big old pile of poo right by this tree in the middle of the clearing. And he goes, see? And he goes, did you bring a camera? Let's start taking pictures. Tom said. And then all of a sudden they heard something. Something was coming through the bushes. And Bob Titmus just went white-faced. He was horrified. And Tom was like, come on, let's go, and Bob's like, and they look out, and something came out of the bushes. And it was an Indian on a horse. And they came up, and they went up to the tree. He got off the horse and tied his horse to the tree. And then they looked, and it took a big crap right on top of the So it kind of blew that whole mess. And but Tom got out of the bushes, came and said, "Hey man, I'm Tom. You know, can I talk to you?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you doing up here?" He goes, "I come here to hunt my herbs. I've been coming here for 20 years." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And so anyway, you know, Bob was just totally embarrassed, and they went back, and they didn't say a word going back, and he just dropped them off at the campsite, and he went, "Damn," and took off, and no one ever saw him again. He moved up to Seattle. Yeah,
his area was.
But there was one other time that he was down there. Remember when I was talking about he came down and saw Jerry, and he was all uppity and stuff. But he saw these bear prints, these little bear prints. And he goes, "Oh," and Jerry and Peter going, "It's bear prints. What are you doing?" And he goes, "No." And he pulls out a camera and he took pictures of it. "These are baby Bigfoot prints," and he sent them to Tom Slick in you know. Anyway, so fascinating story. Yeah, I uncovered that whole story on the internet. You know, with Peter Burns. Very cool. Very cool.
So you know, the madness we see now existed even back then.
Well, that's true. I mean, well, you know, there's a lot of people that it's like a paranormal show. It's like, "Do you see that? Do you see that? There it is. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, we missed it."
Oh,
Like it's never quite there, you know. Yeah, I believe in the paranormal. Don't get me wrong, but you know, and the Bigfoot's the same way. You know, like I mean, I'm out of the loop because I'm hearing about Bigfoot massacre and all this crazy stuff, and it's like, you know, it's like anything for a rating, you know, anything for a click, you know. I don't know anything about it, but you know, I don't claim to be an expert on anything, but I've gone over a lot of information. So,
well, you have a lot of the stories that are very important for us to know.
They're all wound in the script, and I try to tell as much as I possibly can the whole thing. Now, Jerry had 3 accidents, and actually Jim Crew had a really bad accident. He broke. He got there was a tong they used to get a tree out of the way after it had been cut. And at one point, the tong, the thing that held the tree, snapped and flew back and hit Jim, and cut him really bad. And he went to the hospital, and Jerry was mortified. And he followed after. He's like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done?" And Jim was all, you know, he's cool, man. He's like, okay. And so they got there and they fixed him up, patched him up, and they said they put a stint on it. So, but they put a thing for any pus to come out, and you know he got better, but. Jerry had 3 accidents. He had one accident where he got all the teeth knocked out of his face because from that tong. Yeah. And his wife was, you know, pretty concerned. You know, I mean, everyone was concerned. It's so dangerous, man. What they're doing is so dangerous. And at one point, halfway through it, he broke his back.
Oh.
He broke his back, and it was bad. And he was down for like 6 months. And, you know, Jim was working at that point, and him and Peter were going out, and they had Peter had access to like some night cameras and some helicopters and stuff, yeah. So I mean, they kept looking, you know, for like 2 years, you know, but he finally got better. Jerry did, and he started working again. And the thing that broke the camel's back, that broke the Jerry's back. Yeah, that's terrible. I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
The last straw, let's say the last straw, was he was on a site and he was working again. Everything was going great. And they just finished. He was heading back and he stepped on a giant rusty nail. And he had to go to the hospital. And that was it. And he said, that's it. And he started getting booked and learning how to be an engineer. He became an engineer and was hired by Boeing or United Airlines. Yeah. And that's when he got out of there and he moved to San Francisco. And I saw him as a kid, man. I mean, he used to come by and do all these crazy magic tricks for me. It was so cool. I've been a magician since I was like 9 years old. And it was because of him and my father. My father taught me the French drop, the first trick I ever learned. But Jerry would come by with all these like foil balls and all this crazy stuff. So cool, man. He knew how to deal with kids because he was so used to teaching Sunday school.
Right.
So, and he wasn't like really shy or anything, man. Like there's a great story I got from his son Wayne, or Wade. Wade is so cool, man. I love Wade. He told me a story about they used to fire guns in their backyard, and they would put these little things from a cow, these little metal things from a cow they put them on the edge of the fence, and they would fire their guns at it, for target practice. And they were out there, and they couldn't seem to hit one, like his 2 kids. And Jerry come out and he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Shot practice, Oh, I can hit them all at once." And they go, "Oh, yeah, right." Pulled out a 45, but blam, and he got them all at once. Look at that. He goes, "I use buckshot," Like, another thing about Jerry was he could fix anything. And I see it in my father. My father was an inventor. My father invented the camera that goes in your body to do surgery. And Fuji stole it from him. And he sued them for $250 million and won and never saw a dime. But that inventor thing is in the crews. And he would anything, he could fix anything, yeah, just crazy stuff, man. I'm just
Question in the from a YouTuber, something to Sasquatch about. Just wondering, did Jerry Crew ever meet Roger Patterson?
He very well could have, and I'm not sure, but I'm sure there was some interaction. I'm not sure. I can find out.
And there's another question.
Oh,
did anyone ever tell Jerry to be quiet?
No, not really, because he wasn't a loud man. Maybe his wife did a few times, but
yeah, I think that joke was made a little bit sarcastically.
I love that.
So I still want to stick with your uncle. So it hits the paper. It goes national.
Shepherds. No, that was later. But yeah, all over the world, all the papers, and it was just like a storm.
Did he have regrets about doing that article?
Well, just for all the commotion it caused. People. There was something about where they wanted him to come out and say that it was fake, and they give him all this money, and then no one do it. Even they did that to Bob Gimlin too. They said, "We'll give you all this money if you say it's fake," and he said, "No, I can't do it because it's not fake." And I love Bob Gimlin, man. He's cool, man. That guy, he has some integrity. And he got ripped off so bad by Patterson. It was unbelievable. Patterson was showing those movies for years, and he even had a fake Bob Gimlin come up and give him an A. Come on, like he was there. He was the Barnum of that too, but Bob Gimlin was a real deal. Yeah. And there was an interview with Bob Dylan that was very much went inside with this theory we have about it being macroevolution. And that was that, when Bob was there, when they were shooting that, he had a gun. He could have shot it. And he said, he was asked, "Why didn't you shoot it?" He goes, "Because first of all, I would only shoot it if my life was in danger. And second of all, it was too human looking." Mm-hmm. There's a big debate about, the tits and everything. Or was it a female, male? Who knows? Who knows?
Right.
But it was too human. It acted too human, and that's why you did not shoot it. And that goes right in with it falls directly into our what we're proposing as a theory. Yeah. So did you hear about that guy in Canada who can give you video footage? He can take you up and show you where they are. He has a thing on Netflix.
Oh, we've talked about him quite a bit, Mr. Standing.
Yeah. I'm working with my niece's husband, Jeff, and he's talked to him a few times too, and he's fairly convincing. I don't know, what is your take on him?
Well, we have exposed Todd's some of Todd's pictures as being hoaxed, layered.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. How did you arrive at that?
Yeah, you might want to check the blog out. You might want to check my blog out on some of the stuff that we uncovered about Todd and how it all started back in 2005. It was an area called Sylvanic. And it was only accessible by this like hole, and you would climb in through this total tunnel, and you would come into this valley called Sylvanic that only the native North Americans or Native Canadians would know that they're there. And the fact the Indians had no clue, because Sylvanic is not an Indian derivative; it's actually a Latin derivative. So,
wow.
And he had this like second grade drawing of a guy on there that supposedly went missing, and that's how it all started. So, But fast forward, then he came out with a face that looked like a puppet, very felt looking, and then
Well, some of the these look pretty good.
then he had the gorilla looking one, right?
Well,
But that was actually layered.
oh dear.
Yeah, and I did an ELA test, which is an error level analysis test on it, and I actually got the actual photo.
Oh wow.
And
Like a lot of birth certificate.
because they had posted it, actually they put it right up on the newspaper website when he first put it out there in like 2011, and then for some reason it morphed into blinking.
Oh wow.
It was all of a sudden it was a video. So
It's unfortunate because I mean it's diluting what's the truth. There's
and
funny.
just so you know, here's the audience's response.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
Well,
but you know who would be a real good guy to go to? A guy we had on last week, Tom Steenberg.
Mhm.
And he's been around. He actually investigated the Jacko, the 1884 Bigfoot that was allegedly captured, the little one that was on the railroad track in British Columbia. And phenomenal guy. We're going to have him on back real soon, too.
Very cool. Very cool.
So I want to pop into this Ray Wallace thing, because that print there looks nothing like Ray Wallace's stompers did.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I remember I posted something on my page and somebody goes, yeah, it's so fake, you're totally fake, your uncle is fake and Ray Wallace and blah blah blah. I go, and I sent him the picture of my uncle's print and Ray's print. See this? This is all the prints that are fake and real. They're the ones that are real and the ones next to Ray Wallace's print. Ray Wallace's print looks like a surfer logo, like a it's so carved. It's so carved, and the organic ones they don't have that fat thing going on in that.
right.
I'll tell you a story about Ray. I had to pare down all the information. I got Ray all his old letters to like John Green, to all these people. I had to pare it down, but I do cover a lot of it. Ray would never. They never came out and say, "Oh, Ray's Bigfoot," till after he died. One of the reasons why, because he could never stand in front of a bunch of reporters. He was like crazy. There was one time where Ray Wallace was going to meet Tom Slick, and he was all excited because them city folk with the big money. So Peter Burns and Ray Wallace and Tom Slick met at the Willow Creek Inn. Okay, so Tom and Peter are sitting there waiting for Ray. He comes in, he's all howdy and everything, and he comes in. Yeah, apparently he couldn't read or write. That's what Peter said. Anyway, he comes in, and howdy and everything. They're talking, and he starts talking about UFOs, and because he always talked about stuff like that. And he said, "Well, I have a baby Bigfoot," and they're like, "Where?"
Ray said that?
I got it back in my place. I got a baby Bigfoot. And he goes, "How much do you want for him?" And he thought about it. He said, $12,000. And Tom looked at him. I said, "Mm-hmm." Pulls out a checkbook, writes. Oh, my banner fell down. That's great. Writes $12,000 down on a check and put it on the table. And Ray reached for it, and he pulled it back. "Where's the Bigfoot? Bring me."
Yeah.
He will. I can bring him in tomorrow morning. He goes, "Okay, that chick will be here for you tomorrow morning. You come back with that Bigfoot." And so then he goes, "Okay, I'll do that." And he left. And then I was like, this is not going to work. It was kind of, they couldn't believe it. The next day he came back, all sheepishly. "Well, he got out during the night." and that's that whole thing's in there. And but there was a lot of even his family, they were like, they have all this big. He would sell fake prints at his store. I have pictures of him and all his fake prints lined up at his store. His roadside little store. And all that merchandise they didn't want to go to waste when he died, so they made the announcement. Oh, Ray was Bigfoot, and and everyone believed that for like 15 minutes. I mean, I'm talking Shepard Smith. I'm talking all the, Fox News, everyone. Jay Leno. They're like, okay, Bigfoot's gone. Okay, it's done. Yeah, it's gone. It's Ray Wallace. Then after the fizzle died down, they started going, okay. And then it really came out of, what a shyster he was and stuff. I mean, God bless him, whatever, I know what it is to do a show and be a showman and all that, but yeah, that ain't true. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, there is a question in the chat room. Actually, it's addressed to me. Did you and D get into a fight? No, we did not. Actually, we were just talking earlier today. Sounds like he was kind of upset about how last night transpired. Why won't MK debate you? That's what D was upset about. So we'll just put that on there. He won't debate me. Apparently, he wants to release a YouTube video. I don't listen to it, nor will I, because I have a follow-up video coming to that this week, maybe even tomorrow because of that. But yeah, MK and the massacre continues. The man who alters evidence and then says it's evidence.
The massacre theory is dead. We killed it. It's gone.
I remember watching that when I watched your show.
Yeah, we
sure. Say about fights. Ray Wallace was very scared of one man, the man who carved his fake print. There was a guy.
Do we know who that is?
I have his name down here. It's and he was scared. He thought he was going to come in and kill him.
Was that Rant Mullins?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think so. And he would always be looking around because he was pissed. He was looking out windows every time, and he was telling everybody, "This guy's going to come and kill me someday." And actually, something where he came into town, and Ray was, like fled, and it's crazy stuff going on because he was so pissed that he made all this money off his invention. Yeah. Now this guy said, "Oh well," he was kind of a, I won't say shyster, but questionable.
Had questionable intentions.
Yeah. I took these prints way back, and blah blah blah. And there's so much nonsense that goes with a lot of this.
I'm not saying the guy's shady, but he passes the collection basket if you sneeze.
The whole Bigfoot. That's my goal was to remove all the fluff from it and get down to the real deal.
Frank just said he needs 350 pounds. That's about $475 American if you'd like to buy his unicorn.
Oh, that's great. I'll put it in my museum. I do have a museum I run the California Institute of Abnormal Arts for 25 years. And we have a museum. And we have a dead fairy that is the lady was convinced that she had a dead fairy. And I can tell you it was alive at one time. And there's big history there. I do have a dead clown from 100 years ago. And 2 dead Chinese magicians. I can legally have that because of pre-1925. I used to be a mortician, so I know all the rules. But I do have the fake head of Bigfoot in my museum. But I always do my tour on the head of Bigfoot. And I say, well, it's a gap. You know what a gap is? No, it's a circus term for fake. But this is Jerry Crew, and I talk about his history.
I have a lint ball from 1986. Does that count for anything?
It tastes delicious.
Yeah. So
well, that gives me several more questions. What Carl just brought out there, but first thing, Carl, I want to ask you because I have read conflicting reports about Jerry Crew over the years. Mm-hmm. Now, some of those reports would list him as Jerry Crew part of a construction site, and then it would say Jerry Crew part of a logging site. Could you let us in on what was the deal going on? What was Jerry actually doing up there? Was he constructing?
He had a crawler tractor, and he was removing the stumps out of the way after they cut them down. That's what he did. He had to crawl one of those crawlers, and he did. He was a logger, and he was working with Ray Wallace's construction company, his logging company. So he was an independent that came in and doing that. And that's how my father did it, and my other uncle Jim. Jim, man, coolest uncle in the world. I mean, like I say, he went on to to work at Steinhardt Aquarium, and he did all these crazy with these giant snakes and stuff. I mean, he's fearless, man, and he's still around, man. And he's the one that gave me all this information. I'm just and I have several scenes throughout the film with Jim and Peter Burns, the Indiana Jones Don Quixote. Yeah, this guy has written some books about
with maybe a little bit of Arthur added in there too.
What, Uncle Arthur? What are you talking about?
Arthur, remember the movie Arthur? Dudley Moore.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, maybe
a little bit of Arthur in there.
He's this guy. He's got some stories, man. He wrote some books that go for like $100, and they're about these incredible histories of these elephants in India, and like all this hunting he did. He did all this huge game hunting. I mean, this guy. Wow, it was such an honor. I've interviewed him 3 times, and I'm gonna actually send him a copy of the script when I'm done. So he's like 96, man. He lives in the Dalles. What a guy, man. I was so honored. Yeah.
And from what I understand, he's still got his facilities pretty well.
Absolutely. Sharp as a tack, man. It's like, I might get a little excited. He's like, no, settle down, young man. Like, okay. Yeah, watch yourself, man, because you're like, yeah, I deeply respect him.
Nice. There's a whole litany of cast of characters that come out of the 50s and 60s. Oh, yeah. And we've covered a lot of them. One quick question I have, Now, Ray Wallace ran the construction company. Did he own the property that was going on?
Good question. I'm not really sure. I don't think so. I think maybe he had parts of it because he set up his little stands eventually, selling roadsides. I mean, this guy would tell stories, man. There was like, you come by, it was like a tourist attraction, eventually. Right. He'd have all these fake prints. He'd talk about all these UFOs and all this crazy stuff. Yep. So, he's quite a character.
Yep. Was Ivan Marks ever mentioned?
Why is that name so familiar?
It's not a good name. Ivan Marks was the guy who tried to tell Peter Byrne that he had filmed a Sasquatch.
Oh, with those short little films?
With those horrible films, yes.
I think I've seen them, yeah. They're really hilarious.
Yep, and allegedly MK says that's proof that Ivan Marks killed the Minnesota Iceman that has relations. And Ivan Marks might have been one of the assassins.
Well, there have been so many attempts at like all these fake films. And I mean, I love the story about the Bigfoot suit that Ray Wallace's wife supposedly wore for the Gimlin film. There's some costume shop that supposedly sold it to Patterson or some ridiculous nonsense. I mean, there's no way physically that a human can get that gait. There's no physically a human can make those strides that were made by that film. I mean, yeah. So that's pretty much one of the only authentic ones that I know of. That's never been. People have gone to great lengths to try to disprove it, and they could never do it.
Very true. Oh my goodness, there's some really funny stuff going on in the chat over there.
Oh, we're talking.
I know a dog man and a ferryman. It's a ferryman.
Oh, okay. I think there's one leaving in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Where you know what? The problem is, Chris, our viewers are getting our 6 sense of humor.
I was hoping that wasn't catching.
So let's talk a little bit about. This is really cool. They in case anybody remembers the 1992 Jeffrey Dahmer: A Secret Life, and we're gonna just get off topic just for a little bit here. This is the man who wrote and played Jeffrey Dahmer, right here.
I wrote it and produced it and played Jeffrey.
Yep. Yeah. I gotta hear how the heck would you? I want to do a movie. I think I'll do it on this Killing Cannibal.
Well, the funny thing is, I made movies with for a while. I made movies with a guy named Bill Osco. My first lead role was a movie called Blood Diner, which was a horror comedy about cannibals. So I had some. And I was a former mortician. I had that background in my head. So I made a bunch of movies with this guy, and we were sitting around one night, and he goes, "You know what? You kind of look like Jeffrey Dahmer." And I just went, ding! And I went right home and I got the police interview. And I wrote my script from the police interviews with Jeffrey. And so it was very low budget. But see, I did something that I learned from these incredible exploitation directors. I mean, you use anything you can. The hook I used when we put it in the trades, when we were casting and assembling our crew, we're shooting this in secret. And my fax machine exploded in 1 month, literally. Smoke coming out of it. There were so many that came through. If you ever want some attention, say you're doing something in secret. So yeah, that was hilarious. And we did a lot of interviews and stuff. But yeah, it was just like I wrote the script, and I'm literally the only one that can say that Jeffrey Dahmer saw my film in prison before he was murdered. And I found that out we did a bunch of shows. We did Milwaukee's Talking, where I was literally interviewed in front of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment door before they tore the building down. And we were on with all the family members, and of course the film was going to be made about this heinous serial killer. I mean, we kind of talked them down, and they're, oh, okay. They'd never seen it. And by the time we got to Maury Povich, man, they whipped him into a frenzy, and it was like the Destroy Carl Crew show. And I'm a debater. I mean, I love to debate. A good debate, I love it. And it was Attack Carl Crew, and I was like, I was defending my film, but it got crazy because there was Janetta, and she was a representation of the family, and she was saying, "You Jeffrey Dahmer number 2," and I'm like, "What?" And got me, and it was amazing. But yeah, it was a very strange thing. Now, I grew up in the theater. I did 17 years of repertory theater since I was a kid till I was like 20. And then I became a mortician for 5 years. And then I had an antique store in the Haight-Ashbury. So I have a very strange background. I mean, I dealt in neon clocks and jukeboxes and slot machines. And I kind of traded that all in later for dead things for my museum. So it's just, yeah, a very, very weird life. But yeah.
Haight-Ashbury. Now we're going.
What?
Haight-Ashbury. Now we're talking Manson territory.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, the funny thing is there's so many serial killer things in my life because one of my dear friends, his name is Josie Pollock, and she was the hula hoop queen from 1969 in London, and she was friends with Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski. She did a movie with them in Italy, so she knew them very well. She was booking clubs in Vegas, and she was heading back in to go to the party the night of the murder at Roman Polanski's house. And she got a headache, and she had to pull over, and she couldn't make it that night. She came the next day.
I remember hearing that too. Yeah.
It's called Backstage Pass to Heaven. She actually married Nigel Olsen, or almost married Nigel Olsen, the drummer for Elton John. She toured with Elton John, and she actually married the most famous magician in the world, Channing Pollock, and she was his assistant. You can go on YouTube and type in Channing Pollock, and she has this black wig on, and she does he was the father of dove magic. His oil painting is hanging at the Magic Castle. You say Channing Pollock, and people go, "Oh, yeah, we know who he is." Yeah, but yeah, so that's going on. And actually, when I was a mortician, I met my business partner. We had the 2 student apartments above the mortuary 30 years ago, and we hooked up later and did this club for 25 years down there. So we used to go hiking in Muir Woods, and we go up there and we're hiking all around. We're going up this path, and I see this dude up there, and he's stomping around like a kook, And I'm from San Francisco, so I was like, okay, whatever. You see that all the time. I remember when they let all the people out of the mental hospitals, and when Reagan did that, and all over the city, people were all crazy. So it's like no big deal. So we kept hiking, and this guy looked at us, pulls out a gun, and waves us back. And I'm like, So we ran down to the parking lot. And there was something called a payphone. I don't know if anyone knows what that is anymore, but
I think they're rarer than Bigfoot.
Unbelievable. And I called the cops, and I reported this guy. And while we're standing there, this woman runs by, and I go, "Hey, I wouldn't go up there." She's, "Yeah." I go, "There's a guy with a gun up there." She goes, "Yeah." She goes up there, and we're standing there waiting on the phone. I hear bang.
Oh, jeez.
And that was the last victim of the Trailside Killer.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I mean, we were, like 20 years old. We smoked a joint. It was like, yeah, what are we doing? We get out of here. So we left, but this even gets weirder. because we worked at this mortuary in San Rafael. Our mortuary buried this woman. One of the morticians saw the personalized license plate of the serial killer driving by because he knew she was being buried there.
Ooh.
And weirder than that, there's a book called The Sleeping Lady, which is about the serial killer. And on the back of it is my business partner, Robert Ferguson, pulling one of the bodies out of the bushes with the other mortician. I mean, like, there's so many, like, crazy. And it turned out the guy lived 2 blocks from him in Twin Peaks and had tried to sell pot from him one time, tried to sell him some pot. He was like, yeah, I want to get out of it. And so, I mean, like, it's just, Richard Ramirez killed somebody two blocks from my mom's house. So it's just like, yeah, there he is. Yeah. Yep. Mr. Carpenter. Yeah.
Wow.
He's still alive. He's still alive. Yeah, and even in Stonestown, where I grew up, right down the street, my best friend, Ingo Bodwin's youngest brother, was killed by the Zodiac Killer in Stonestown, which is like a mile, less than a mile from my place. That's where we used to go hang out. He was one of the stabbed in a Petrini's market when it was one of those times when it was all dark. His name was Norman Bodwin. There's articles on the internet about Norman Bodwin being the last one of the victims of the Zodiac. Unbelievable. You know, it's like, yeah, it's all around me all the time. Yeah. So I'm actually writing part 2 of Jeffrey Dahmer right now.
Wow. And you know, that's really cool because I from a criminal psychology standpoint,
yeah,
I do a lot of reading on serial killers.
Yeah.
And in fact, and I usually I have Audible, so a lot of times I'll rebuy my books on Audible that I have on that to listen to them. And I was actually about halfway through Helter Skelter when COVID-19 came in, so I haven't really picked it up since. And that's why when you mentioned about her not making it, I remember hearing about that. I think there was a blurb in Helter Skelter about that.
What's the name of the main prosecutor?
Vincent Bugliosi.
Yeah, I met Vincent Bugliosi. We did a radio show. You know, we did all these kooky films. This character, we came up with this. I wrote this movie called Urban Legends, and it was like 30 urban legends in one movie, all happening to one girl. By the end of the thing, she becomes an urban legend. 2 weeks before we were going into production, the guy goes, "Hey, we don't have the money. You got to write something else." I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, so we put together this stupid thing. We came up with this character called Rusty DeFage, spelled Rusty DeFaggy. And it was this, my dear friend Dino Lee, man. This guy was in Blood Diner. He was in a bunch of other videos. He pretended to be this really super effeminate straight guy named Rusty DeFage with a big bouffant hairdo. Rusty DeFage. And we went on a radio show in the most conservative radio station in LA, KIEV. And we did a midnight call-in show. And it became so famous that all the writers from Saturday Night Live were calling in. It was like a big deal. But my point is, hello again.
Yep, we actually have a podcaster in the in over on the YouTube side of things, and he said he would like to interview you. And my suggestion would be you can find Carl very easily on Facebook.
Yeah, scarily enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
this Bugliosi was on before we went on one night. He was closing the show down. We were the next people up, so I got to talk to him. Man, it was really fascinating. There's so many. You never know who you're going to meet in Hollywood. You just never know, man. That's the weirdest part. Yeah, it's very, very.
You never know who you're going to meet at the airport either. I remember one time coming back from Midway Airport in Chicago, waiting on a flight to connect back to Albany.
Yeah.
And I look and that's Stevie Wonder.
Oh wow!
Damn, he's tall.
Yeah, that's so cool. I heard he had an operation where he can literally hear now, or he can literally see now. I mean, yeah, no, that's what I heard. I don't know if it's true, but God bless him. Brilliant music.
But I had probably the coolest adventure the first time I ever flew. This is actually the first time I ever flew. I was 20, 1989, and I had a connecting flight to JFK. And if you've ever been to JFK, it's a cool place. So I'm standing there waiting, and we had like a 2-hour, 3-hour layover. And we were flying Pan Am at the time. When Pan Am was there, we were flying that from there down to Daytona, And I remember sitting there in the waiting area there with the gate. And I look out the window and park next to the Pan Am. Here's this big plane that says Aeroflot, which back in the day was the old Soviet Airlines.
Oh, wow.
And they were disembarking, and all of a sudden, here comes 5 of these Russian generals walking out with all the medals. I'm like, oh, it's the enemy. But here's the cool thing too. So I started watching the Aeroflot. I'm standing there. Everybody's like, Steve, what are you doing? I go, look. And there's a guy walking under the airplane in a trench coat and a suit, fedora. I go, you know who that is, right? No, no, that's KGB. He's watching. He's standing by the plane. He's watching the plane.
Wow.
Really cool. And then about 20 minutes later, I heard this really weird engine, and there was Air France Concorde right up. Wow. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. First time I ever, of course, I've been to 46 states now, but that was my first time, and it's always embedded into me.
Yeah, the planes are. When we did the Maury Povich, I got on a plane ride back to LA, and I got on, and there was Dom DeLuise and Peter DeLuise, and I sat right next. Now, when I went to Bridgemont High School, which was a private high school on Nob Hill in San Francisco, I got really bored one day. I was in journalism class, right? I called up to the Fairmont Hotel. I go, who's playing up there? Oh, Dom DeLuise. I hung up, called back. I go, Dom DeLuise, please. They put me right through. He goes, hello. And I go, oh, I'm a student here. I'd love to do an interview. And he goes, yeah, come on. We come up to the show tonight. So me and my girlfriend, Natasha, we went up there that night, saw the show, and he took us backstage, and it was really cool. And we taped the interview, and we put it in the school newspaper. So years later, many, many years later, I get on a plane with him. I go, I still have that tape.
Oh, wow.
Hard. Yeah, it was really cool. But you never know who you're going to run into. I ran into Willie Chambers from the Chamber Brothers at the House of Pies. Like what? One time I was shooting a movie downtown with my friend. He was the co-star for Blood Diner, Rick Baker. What a brilliant actor. And we were in another movie called The Underachievers with all these people. And we were at our lunch break, 12 midnight. And he had just been casted in a David Bowie film, video. So he goes, it's lunch break. Let's go around the corner. I'm going to introduce you to somebody. I said, okay. We run around the corner to this dive bar. Walk in. There's only 2 people in there. And he goes, well, this is Adrian Belew from King Crimson. I'm like, hello. And he goes, oh, that's David. And there was David Bowie. And I'm like, hi. And I said, I didn't fawn or anything. I said, I love your work. Thank you so much for your work. And he was really cool to me. He was really nice. He was like this big. But I mean, like, it was, you never know who you're going to meet down here. Like, amazing. So anyway. I mean, I met Burgess Meredith one time. I was going to a party with Rick Burks, the director in Malibu Colony. We look up, we're lost, and like this guy standing on his back. I go, you know where this address is? He goes, I go, it's the Penguin. He goes, yeah. There he was, and then he gave me the great directions that we got right there. It was so cool.
Nice. Oh, I love Burgess Meredith. He was great, man.
Oh, he's so cool.
Prolific actor. A lot of prolific stuff he did. Twilight Zone, where he was the librarian that broke his glasses.
Bill Mooney one time he shot a documentary about Dr. Demento here at my institute, and he did the roly-poly fish heads with Barnes and Barnes, and he was so cool. I mean, that's Will Robinson. Come on. He grew up on Lost in Space, He was really fascinated with my dead fairy because he had been hunting fairies on the Isle of Man and all that stuff, whatever. But, yeah, you never know who you're going to run into. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think there's a certain age group of people that will know who Burgess Meredith is, and it's the ones that grew up watching Batman after school.
Oh, yeah. Love that. And there's few of us left. Yeah. I mean, I get people, millennials coming down to the club and David Bowie, who? And I'm like, never mind.
Never mind. I know there is quite a generational loss that we have here. Okay, who we got?
This is Wade with the guy who wrote the Jared Crew Knew What to Do song. And
Yep. Tom Yams. Yep.
Yeah. Wade, really cool guy, man. He's so good. He's been just. Oh, now I got a big announcement. Ready for a big announcement right at the end? Okay, here we go. Wade called me. He's just moving. He moved into a new place. He called me, sent me a picture of a tape he found, a little cassette tape of 1982 Jerry Crew speaking about Bigfoot.
Oh,
Wow.
Blew my mind. So he's making a copy for me and he's sending it to me, and I'm going to incorporate it in the film. We're going to
Wow.
and so it's actually him speaking. So we're getting it converted to it. We're digitizing it, and my brother is into doing archival, stuff, museum quality, sweetening of sound for archive. So we're gonna, it's insane. I cannot wait to hear his voice and how he spoke. And
Hey, hold on. You're gonna laugh at this one.
okay,
Cameron, are you talking about us?
right, you hit the nail on the head there.
Drop the fish.
I'm sure you're not reading the X-rated ones yet.
Oh, it was good growing up, back when we was a kid. At least we had TVs, and
Even in Kentucky, yes, they had TVs.
You say TV or TV? Yeah.
But I remember, man, I mean, we had like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, all the superheroes after school, man, every day. There you go,
Oh yeah. And then they took off cartoons,
Yeah.
And Cameron, yes, I know. We were just having a little fun with that one. Although that could be a title for MK's latest video.
Yeah.
And Chris is shaking his head, but apparently MK threw a lot of shade, and I'm laughing at it because he doesn't know what's coming. Oh, boy! Anyhow, but I said I wouldn't talk about that. Coppers, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, we grew up watching Warner Brothers cartoons too, which you can't see now because they're not politically correct.
Yeah.
And although we didn't think anything about it as kids,
Popeye,
now
Tom
people,
and Jerry.
they read into it now. I don't know why. It's just a cartoon. Don't read into it.
Well, the whole concept of political correctness came up by Frankfurt University, 1929. It came up as a device to split people up, and that's been employed a lot because it re-stigmatized everything that was not any problem. They re-stigmatized it, so all of a sudden you got all these like mine, bomb buried mines. You can't step on. It's crazy. I'm the exact opposite of that. I mean, I care for people. I don't want to hurt people, but come on.
You know what the turning point I think is? I think the turning point of political correctness is when they started criticizing Rudolph for emphasizing bullying. Remember Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Yeah, there was a whole group out there saying, "Oh, well, that movie promotes bullying."
Somebody whining about something.
Oh, good Lord. Years ago, and we'll get back on the topic, but we got to take a little break and get outside the bounds and get to know us a little bit better, which is great. But years ago, there's a radio station up in the Albany market, WGY, and they had this afternoon talk show host who he made some comments. I forget exactly what it was, but PETA got on his case, about lobsters. So what he did was he had him boil the lobster live on the radio, and they melted the butter, and he ate it on the radio show. And I remember my boss calling me, going, "Hey, Kulls, you listening to WGY?" Because we used to sit in our offices with the radios on. "Hey, you listening to WGY?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is great."
Did they turn the microphone up so they hear lobster screaming in the hall?
I don't know.
I work with lobster people. I mean, they call me the Barnum of Burbank Boulevard because I've done real freak shows for 25 years. And all the freak shows from all over America used to come by my place and share. We did, from World of Wonder in Florida, from Coney Island, very famous Tim the Torture King. We used to do Girly Freak Show, which was Slimenstra Hyman from the Guar band. She was the Guar goddess. And she she took 1 million volts out of her face at the end of every show. Talk about a showstopper. Yeah. But 999 was called 999 Eyes. They're from Texas, and they were real lobster people. My stage is 4 handicapped people. We used to do We used to call it Retarded Night. Yeah. And yeah, we changed it. But it was a school it was a band called Kids from Whitney High. And they were from a mentally challenged school for mentally challenged children. And the teachers would play the music and they would sing and they did movies and videos, like they get up in the candy bar, and people would loved it. And we throw these nights, and we're so used to having different people with different problems, performing the stage, and the amount of talent was insane. One guy came down on one of those nights with no arms, and he played the electric guitar with his feet like Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
Mind blowing. Anyway, back to the subject. The thing about Jerry Crew is there was one time he went out with Peter Burns, like I said, and he found the beds and everything. And they stayed there all night, and the smell was so thick it scared the crap out of Jerry. Jerry wanted to go. And Peter was like, no, we're going to camp here. So they camped here, and he was feeding the fire. And I mean, literally the smell was intense. He was just, any moment there was going to be one coming out. They knew they could smell it. And Peter fell asleep, and he woke up in the early morning, and Jerry was still awake feeding the fire. And and his whole thing he was sleeping in, was covered in ash. Peter's his sleeping bag was covered in ash from all night of the And then can we go home now? And he went home.
He built a big enough fire; it'll keep it away.
Really, really knew. He knew that they were real. He felt their presence, and Jim's the same way. Fascinating stuff.
Right. Now, I'm not quite sure. When did Jerry pass?
I think it was 82, I believe. 82. It could have been 84.
Been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Been a while. And yeah.
But he went to the grave believing in this phenomenon, which is quite a feat, because
very completely convinced. Yeah. There's never a point where he doubted it. He just couldn't explain it. It's like so many people, but
And every generation has its cast of characters.
Boy, no kidding.
I mean, back then you had the Ivan Marxes and the Ray Wallaces and the Rant Mullins. Now we have. I'm not going to say it.
No,
we have Todd Standing, Rick Dyer.
Or those
people. They're just.
Todd said he would take anyone up to show him the Bigfoot if they, and he doesn't even want any fame. He's just doing it to get it out there. So he wants.
Well, it's so bad with Todd that somebody went with him, and he was filming it, and then you hear this little video off to the side where the camera's kind of like at an angle it shouldn't be. I just looked in the back of the car, and there's a pair of gorilla hands in the back. Just like the video I put out there with the woman, narrating. It's like you can't make some of this stuff up. That not everybody is the brightest cookie in the.
Their nonsense will always find them out at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, do you want to go to 10:30 tonight, or you want to go to 11?
Well, whenever you want to go, babe.
I think we'll go to 10:30 tonight. We'll call it an early night tonight. I've been up to the wee hours doing stuff.
Long day.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a long night too, because I got some more stuff I got to do.
Wait a minute. I got some important shop questions for Carl.
Okay.
Carl, now you briefly mentioned that you were a mortician at some point, or you worked in the mortuary. Well, a shop question here. What would be a good temperature to preserve a human-type looking body that had hair all over it?
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole concept of embalming is to take the blood out and put something in it that's going to preserve it.
Okay.
For the point of a funeral. I don't believe in open casket. I think it's horrible. But I mean, I literally learned to sculpt from using mortician's wax to sculpt people's faces back from a gunshot wound where I'd look at their
Wow.
and
Yeah.
learn the scope. Yeah, I mean, yeah, my dead clown is embalmed with mercury and arsenic, but that's turn of the century embalming, and he's hermetically sealed, so he's airtight. That's 1912. So he looks really good. The other ones look terrible.
So you think, like, if we can come up with a body of one that's been hit by a truck or something eventually, sometime at some future date, the best way to do would be to embalm it as if it was a normal human, and then maybe keep it at a below freezing temperature, or
you get it frozen as fast as possible. Yeah, and then you want to do X-rays right away. Yeah, you definitely want to do an autopsy as soon as possible. You probably want to do an autopsy before you freeze it, but to just maintain it, to freeze it. Yeah,
that's the thing I was considering, because the body's going to be taken apart eventually, and the best way to preserve it, I would hate to have one and then it rot away.
Right. Well, even people who are embalmed with formaldehyde rot eventually. It does not forever. I mean, like I say, my dead clown is hermetically sealed, so he looks like he could open his eyes. But the other, I have a magician named Fa Choi, who is 1914. He was embalmed with pure mercury, and he looks terrible. And we have Madeline Long, the midget magician jewel thief, and she's embalmed with ginseng and mercury. Tastes a little bit, and she looks terrible too. But yeah, so fascinating question. Yeah, people go, oh, people go, oh, were you a mortician? I go, yeah. Oh, did you do the hair and the makeup? No, we did the carotid and the ephemeral. Yeah, we had other people come in and do all that stuff.
Well, I mean, it's got to be a tough job. Got to be.
Well, it's funny because you get used to it to a certain degree. It's weird for a while. It's like anything else. I mean, actually, later when I wrote the Jeffrey Dahmer film, I realized he was getting used to it because he was doing it so much. So it kind of came like a rhythm, and I understood that. That was one thing that helped me understood, where he was. He gets sloppy towards the end, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing. When I think about it, I can't even believe I did that. It's like, wow. But see, I grew up seeing heart surgery as a child. And that freaked me out. I was like, at least, when we weren't going to be in pain. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hey, we do have a question, and it's a good one to end on for tonight. It's, what's it going to take to move the ball down the field with knowing more about this phenomenon?
Finding one. Getting one. Capturing one. That's the only answer.
Do you think that the only way we're going to prove it to science is having a specimen, whether it be alive or dead?
Pretty much.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that because, we've seen, we've had people take bats at DNA tests, and one in particular who did it really badly. Another one found a lot of, apparently misidentified evidence, and in some cases contamination.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's that guy that found that fake dead Bigfoot, remember?
Yeah, I hate to say that.
Yeah.
My whole thing would be, I would hope we would stumble upon one in the forest rather than actually take one down or take one in.
It'll happen eventually. I believe it. I mean, it's been an enigma so long, and I mean, who knows? The thing is, what I love is that 100 years ago, the scientists all got together and said, we have discovered everything you could possibly discover. There's nothing left for us to discover. And then 2 months later, quantum physics was discovered.
Yep.
There's no end to it. So to me, I mean, I believe in God. I mean, I believe in like the ultimate creator. His mind is so intense. We couldn't even imagine the least of his thoughts because he's infinite. We're finite. We're like, what? And he's like, way beyond. So there are levels of this world we have no idea. They're discovering new species every year. I mean, they're all coming out of the ocean. There's stuff that there's no way you could ever find out everything. So, but I mean, I hope that someday we find a real living Bigfoot. That would just be mind blowing. I look forward to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well said.
Yep. Well, folks, one thing I am probably going to do tonight, I'm going to do an after show tonight with a video blog. because there's a lot of things coming to light on a whole nother topic. So it needs to be addressed, and we'll settle the crowds down.
Boy.
So at some point, probably,
I love it.
probably by 11:30 Eastern PM, I will be probably doing a video blog. I was going to save it for tomorrow, but I need to narrate. I need to speak my piece. So we need to do that too. So that's why we're going to kind of call it short tonight. But we've had some, I mean, wow, I think we've had about 3 hours of discussion in this hour and a half.
Great. Thank you so much.
And,
We had a good show before the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, hi to Ken, man. I love Ken. Ken and Jax, they came by my club and gave him a tour, and they were so cool, man. I love Ken. He's brilliant. Amazing guy.
Yep. So, Carl, what a pleasure. Please keep in touch, man. This has been fun. You know, like I said, Chris is available to be cast as Bob Hieronymus.
Carl, it was great having you, man. Thanks, such an honor. And please let us know when that movie comes out. I know you know.
I'll give you tickets, baby.
Yeah,
Good
you
deal.
know what? Do you have a projected date or a goal date for when?
No, I don't. I'm just what I'm doing right now is I'm waiting for the tape to come in, and I'm going to incorporate that into it. And then I have some people who want to, some pretty fairly big people want to check it out right away. So
awesome.
You know, blah 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 until the check is good. You know, I don't celebrate, but yeah.
Well, yeah, boy, we've learned that lesson. I know Hollywood. I've been on enough TV to know you got to wait for the ink to dry in that check before you start.
All right. Well, Bigfoot blessings on both of you.
No, thank you. And you know what? Before that show comes out, like a month prior, you know, that movie comes out, please come back and talk, you know, a little, give us a little, we want to pump it.
Update. My pleasure, brother.
All right, guys. All right. Hey, folks, we've had a great show tonight. I want to thank my guest, Carl Crew, for coming on tonight. Chris Bennett, as always, it's a pleasure, my brother. And I want to wish everybody a happy, safe, and great week. Keep away from the COVID, folks. It's almost over.
Yeah, amen.
And Cameron, yes, there is. If you want to contact me, I can be found on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, admin@squatchdetective.com is my email address. admin@squatchdetective.com. Yeah, there'll be another stream coming at 22:30 Central Time, which is 23:30 my time. I'll be coming on. So, everybody, again, have a great week. And, of course, we're never complete without saying keep on squatching. Catch you all next Sunday, guys.
Hey folks, you've been watching Squatch-D TV. Join us each week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, for the latest on the Bigfoot mystery. As always, we thank you for being our loyal viewers and encourage all to subscribe to our YouTube page at youtube.com/Steve Kulls. As always, have a great week. Stay safe. God bless, and keep on squatching.